Hello everybody and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program, where the game is paused. Okay, there we go. Problem solved. We of course need to do the pressurized module for the Kerbal. So that'll be absolutely fine. Let's hop right on in here. And let's load up, I think, the previous version that we had, or the previous flight that we had. That was the... Actually, it doesn't really matter. We could do one of these struts, but I think that we should probably load up the previous one, and I can't remember what the name of that was. It was... Dexter. That's what it was. Okay, so it's with a D. So we're just right up over here, and that'll be Dexter ELM. Beautiful. So we'll load this guy up, and let's load, or rather open up this bay. We're of course going to be getting rid of a lot of this. So let's get rid of the hitchhiker storage container so we can see what's going on here. And then I'm going to immediately get rid of the Dexter and everything up over here as well. Okay. So there we go. We currently have installed on here a Clampotron docking port Junior. We should not need this Clampotron docking port. We can get rid of that. Then we can come in to our coupling and we can grab our advanced grabbing unit that can go straight onto our robotic arm. Okay. Now the robotic arm can get stowed away. No problem there. Do we have a grab arm in here? Yes, we do. We do not need that. So that'll be absolutely fine for the moment. Next, we're going to need to grab this alligator hinge and bring that out to 90 degrees. There we go. And at this point, we're going to need our actual Kerbal module. So let's take a quick look at what this is going to end up looking like. So this is the module here. The pressurized module is what we need to lift. It will dock in using a large docking port here. The pressurized section will need to be moved to be here. We know that that is currently using a large docking port as well. Then we need the remote manipulator system as part of this flight. And we also are going to need a small docking connector, I'm thinking, down over here for the exposed facility, which will be, I believe, part of next flight. Let's see here. So the GEM pressurized module and the GEM remote manipulator system, yeah. And then the S6 truss and solar arrays, then the exposed facility. Okay, gotcha. So that's absolutely fine, and this is going to be roughly... yeah, about twice the length of this. So that's absolutely fine. We can put in, this is a hitchhiker storage container, I believe, in reality. We could have this be 2 hitchhiker storage containers put together, or we could maybe come up with something slightly different. So if we went into utility here, it could theoretically be a pair of hitchhiker storage containers put together. I think maybe it would need to be slightly longer than this, about like that. Because then the pressurized section would end up being mounted, you know, something like this. This is about the right size here. This is supposed to be the largest single module on the ISS. So this does make sense that it'll be kind of big here. We need this end to have a, and I don't know that we're actually going to have these be hitchhiker storage containers. For right now, we're using this as a size mock-up. It may end up being that, but we may change that to like fuel tanks. That's probably not the worst of ideas. It won't actually have, like, crew storage, but that's fine. We can make it be the kind of metallic or almost paneled look that this has got going on here. So we can do something along the lines of this. We'd hop into the fuel tanks. This would end up being an X-16 and an X-32 put together. And then we're going to need to attach this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in a robotic extender here. So a 1P4. That'll end up going approximately there. Yep, that'll do. And then we're going to put in a small docking port. So that's going to be a docking port Junior. That'll go there, and then we'll duplicate that like this. Then we're going to put that in, but that's not going to be in this exact position. Now, I do want this to be maybe ESA. It's a little bit more almost paneled. Now, that's a like pre-visualization image. If we look at the actual Kerbal here, we can see that the final production model is much more metallic than it appears in that original image, right? So this is the actual a photograph of the actual module on the station. So that's fine. I was just using the other photo as like size references and things like that. So that's absolutely okay. So I think that we should probably go for metal here. That'll be fine. And then this fuel tank would go on here. That would also be metal, like that. Then we would need to adapt this down. So we would grab this adapter here, and then it would go on like this. And then we grab this adapter going on like so. These could both be metal as well. And then we put on our large docking port, something like this. Now, of course, we're going to want to launch these empty. Otherwise, there's way too much mass here. So that's fine, but this is not exactly in the position I want it to be in. So we're going to move this guy up. Whoa. Okay, I've never done that before. I didn't actually expect this here to be curved. I guess that makes sense. So we could adapt this down, potentially, in some... Well, that's going to, like, centralize it. What if we simply used an engine plate here? So if we used an engine plate, that would end up being an EP25, right? And that would end up going... So if we detach this and we put this guy on, that'd end up going something like that. I would want this to be in short alternate, probably. Because we don't actually want an attach point over here, right? So it would end up being something like this. But the attach points are going to be on this side. And that's reasonably fine. I want double attach points here. Okay, and we can see that they are attaching like that. Gotcha. So I want to rotate it like so and attach it there. That would be the ideal position. Then we would put this guy in like that. Then we would do the robotic arm here, in theory. So there's a couple points of articulation for the robotic arm. We'll use a G00 hinge. This should be a fairly small arm. And we'll do... Actually, maybe we'll do rotation servo first. Is this the smallest rotation servo we have? Actually, this one's smaller. So that'll be fine. We can do something like that, and we can go with a gray coloration on it. Now, I was thinking about how we wanted to actually construct this. I don't think that telescoping hydraulic cylinders are really the way here. I think that what we're looking for, if we look at this reference image again, I think this is basically just like, kind of like an I-beam. We can think about what kind of a size of object we might want to have here. So something like this, that's way too big. So like a pocket edition I-beam, that might be about the right size there. And we could have this be insulated. That is actually kind of perfect, I think. So then we would duplicate this, and we would just rotate that to be like so, right? So that can be rotated there. It can also be articulated this direction. So that's absolutely fine. Then the next thing that we have is another set of hinge here. So that would end up going here, but we get rid of all of this. So now is when things get a little sketchier on how this exactly works for me. Okay, I'm just looking at what we've got. I think what I want here is another rotation servo, like this. So another point of articulation, and then a very, very, very small I-beam. But I don't think we have anything that small. It might end up being a cubic octagonal strut here. This would need to be insulated in order to somewhat match this. But actually, cubic octagonal struts can't be insulated, so it'll have to be like this, which isn't necessarily ideal. I think maybe 2 of these would be about the right length, looking at that. And then some sort of a manipulator at the end here. And I think we're probably going to end up just going with a Advanced Grabbing Unit Junior here. Even though that feels pretty big for what we've got going on here. So maybe what this needs to be is some sort of an adapter. I believe there is a similar part for that. So that would be like this modular girder adapter, but smaller, right? That would be what we would want. There's this octagonal strut here, which would work. Is there something that adapts between the octagonal strut and the cubic octagonal, or rather the cubic octagonal strut? That would be the modular girder small adapter, perhaps? That's even still too big. Okay, so if those are all too large, then we might just have to have it be what it is. So this would go to like an octagonal strut here. Something kind of like that. I'd really prefer to have this be some sort of a transitionary thing, right? But if we look at the sizes here, that adapter goes from square to round. It doesn't change size. So that's the core problem here. This one does change size, but it also goes from square to round. We don't mind square to round, but we need to go from the cubic octagonal strut size up to the modular girder segment size. That's the way that would have to be. So I think we're just going to have to call this good as it is. And as far as storing this goes, I'm not sure how we're going to pack that away just yet. But we could have this be potentially extended out straight to take up as little space as possible, but it's still going to take up a fair amount of space, to be honest. If we were to currently just fold this in, I'm willing to bet that this is going to clip all over the place. Indeed it is. Okay, so we absolutely do need to move this guy down. We're clipping a little bit here, but we might be able to fix that by simply grabbing our alligator hinge here and angling that to be about there. Okay, so that works as far as the actual module itself goes. But the robotic arm needs to be a thing as well, right? So we could definitely have the target angle here be backwards and store it inverted, kind of like this. Now, I did not mean to grab that. I actually meant to right-click it. Oh, that undid all of this. Okay. So I wanted to grab this guy and store it maybe kind of like this. That's an interesting way to store this, actually. There's a lot of clippage there, no doubt about it, but we'll flip that around once we deploy this. I think that's okay. So we would strut this guy directly from here to here. I would also want to strut it from like here to here. And then maybe on like this side as well. So something kind of like that. Then we would simply strut this here, here, and here. And that should not be going anywhere at all. So yeah, that does fit in. Oh, hang on a moment. Okay. I think we accidentally undid our alligator hinge here. Luckily, we can just change that without having to worry about the struts while we're in the VAB. So 2 degrees causes it to just barely poke out here. Can we take this down to like 1.5? It rounds to the nearest integer. Okay. 1 degree does not clip out at the top or bottom. Okay, that appears to work. Beautiful. It's a little sad that rounds to the nearest integer. Especially when, yeah, it definitely does round to the nearest integer here, but this is being displayed with a decimal, so I don't know. Kind of odd. Regardless, this is, I think, going to absolutely work. So we'll call this the Kerbal pressurized module. Fantastic. And I think we're ready to launch this thing. This is definitely the single largest module that we're going to be launching. So that is great that we managed to fit that in relatively easily. Hang on a moment. We're still clipping here. Okay, let's make a minor adjustment here. So I'm going to grab this guy again. We're just going to move that down a smidgen here. We need to turn off snapping. And continue to move that down a little bit. There we go. Something like that should do. Okay, so now we aren't clipping. Let's just double check that. Yeah, looks good. Okay. Fantastic. So let's save this and let's put this out on the pad. Let's get this thing up into orbit so we can get it to the ISS. Now, as far as what we're going to do on this flight, we need to install the pressurized module. Then we need to uninstall the pressurized section from the temporary docking port it's currently at and place it on top of the pressurized module, which we did not include a docking port for here. Ooh, okay, we should definitely revert this then. I forgot that. So we'll revert this back to the vehicle assembly. This should be let's see here. I'm thinking about the orientation of this thing. It should be on the same side. Yeah, it should be on the same side as the robotic arm. So that means that it should be, the docking port should be on the back side here. So it should be back over here. Let's see if we can clip in there and get this thing installed. There's not a lot of space there, to be honest. Not a lot of space indeed. Okay, let's temporarily, we know that this is at 1 degree, right? So let's temporarily just grab our arm here. Very difficult to see, but actually it's at 2 degrees. So that's fine for the moment. Actually, maybe moving that back wasn't necessary if that's still at 2 degrees. But let's just move this out real quick and we'll put it back in as soon as we're done here. So this needs to be on the same side, and it needs to be away from where the station is going to be. So it's going to be right up over here. So that docking port is going to end up, it's going to be a large docking port. It's going to end up being somewhere out over here. And where exactly do we want that? Well, let's grab this for now. I'm going to duplicate this guy to act as the module, right? So I'm just going to put it here. That'll do. This is not a perfect replica, but something like that. This should be aligned in such a way where this is basically flush over here. Okay, so that'll be fine. We'll just move this guy right on over to be, yeah, right about there or so. So this fuel tank is not necessary. We only need this docking port, and that should be fine. Now we can grab our alligator hinge, put this back at 2 degrees, which was where it was. That's 3 degrees. 2 degrees. Okay, I think we have a very, very slight clipping here. Let's put it at 1 degree and see if we're clipping out the back. Okay, this is clipping out on this side now. Okay. So that's going to make things mildly awkward for us. It's not the end of the world, but it is definitely going to make things tougher. But we should be able to move this whole apparatus this way. The main concern there is that we're going to start clipping here. We'll see what ends up happening with that. But I want to come in here and I want to use the move tool, grabbing the alligator hinge here and setting this to be, you know, somewhere like here. Obviously, that is clipping on this side. So what is the furthest that we can move this over here before it starts to clip? That is just barely clipping. So about here. Actually, that's perfect. That doesn't clip at all. Excellent. That should do the trick then. I don't see any instances of clippage here. Beautiful. Okay, let's put that out on the pad now that we've remembered to have that extra docking port. Is there anything else that we are missing? While this is loading in, let's just take a quick peek here. This is already on station. The arm is included. The docking port down here to connect this external facility is included. This is the module, of course. We have a docking port for connecting here, and it's on the correct side. We are hooked up shuttle side over here. So I think that'll work just fine. Let's lift this thing off. If we have issues, we can always reconstruct with Bill, but I don't think that we will. So let's take this up to about 200 kilometers here, of course. Don't skip circularization. Go ahead and do corrective steering. Set as target, launch into plane of target, and let's warp forward. It'll be about an hour. Okay. No problem whatsoever there. We'll be launching into the target plane in about 5 minutes. 2 minutes. Beautiful. Okay, we should definitely keep an eye on our burn time here. Although last time we were able to successfully detach those without destroying our wings, which was... I'm going to call that a fluke. I've not been able to consistently do that. Let's put it that way. In the testing that we previously ran, it didn't go great when we did that. I would much prefer to detach this at about 2 seconds remaining. It seems far safer. So that's exactly what we're going to do. So up we go here. We've got about 70 seconds of burn time in these SRBs, of course. Cool. So I'm just taking a look at the external facility, right? So we've got the exposed facility, the inter-orbit communication system, which I'm not sure if that's launched separately or not. That's definitely something that we should think about. It's not listed. Okay, so it's not listed in the main space station assembly list. So I'm just checking in here to see. Now, I think it's listed as part of the exposed facility. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I'm just double checking that. It probably is. I don't have a guarantee on that, but I suspect that it is. I strongly suspect. So that'll be okay. Off we go here, going nice and upside down. This is good. This is how it's supposed to go, how it's designed to go. Technically, we can launch in the other orientation. I would prefer it if MechJeb would just flip us over in that situation. It doesn't do that, of course, so that's fine. We could probably figure out some option here, like force roll in some way, and that seems like work. So we'll avoid that for now. We've got about 8 seconds left in these SRBs, and we'll get those detached here in just a moment. 3, and detach. Off go the SRBs, nice and safely. Fantastic. Of course, now to cut down on this shimmy, we're going to cut our gimbal limit down to 33. There we go. There's a lot of steps to flying this thing. Of course, the real space shuttle probably had a lot more steps, to be honest. Those things are usually like 10,000 long step procedures. It's kind of insane. I don't know exactly how many it was for the shuttle, but I would imagine it was a lot. We'll keep an eye on our external fuel tank, but I really doubt that we're going to have any issues with that. We pretty consistently have about 1 kilometer per second to spare on the external tank. But given the thrust offset, it's just not worth carrying along. So that's absolutely fine. We're burning almost exactly away from target right now, which is mildly awkward. Interesting. Interesting indeed. We'll take a look at those orbits here in a moment. We haven't, of course, finished up our ascent here, and we're currently still at 2.7 degree inclination, which is absolutely fine. Our apoapsis height is not even... Okay, it just crossed the border to space. So that's okay. Let's get ourselves that extra roughly 700 meters per second that we need, and that'll be fine. But yeah, it's interesting how close we are to the anti-target marker here, especially when we consider that the target's right here. Interesting timing, no doubt. I'm wondering if we can get a pretty clean intercept. There's a potentiality of that. We'll see. We're not launching specifically for that, though, so it's fine. If we use the launch to intercept with MechJeb, it would be more of a thing, but as it is right now, it would just be a happy coincidence. We're not even trying to. We're just trying to target that 200 kilometer orbit approximately in the right plane, and then we'll find an encounter. That's the idea anyway. Apoapsis has been fine-tuned. We are technically still in space here, so we're coasting to edge of still in atmosphere here. We're coasting to edge of atmosphere, and now we're going to coast to that circularization burn. Let's get turned for it. We'll continue to use the big orange tank for the circularization, but once we're in orbit, we'll reconfigure for spaceflight, and that'll be absolutely fine. Okay, warping on forward with regular warp instead of physics warp. And we'll get our circularization done shortly here. We could consider dropping our thrust limiter here, but we're already too close to the burn for that, so that would have been a thing to do before this burn started up. But our thrust is definitely overkill, shall we say. Okay, MechJeb, this is good enough. We don't need better than this. Get out of here. Okay, kill rot, and I'm going to ditch the big orange tank here with its 918 meters per second. There we go. I don't know why we pushed it away with the nose. I guess that's something Jeb just wanted to do. Good job, Jeb. Let's just reconfigure this thing for orbital flight now. Since we... Oof. Good flying, Bill. Since we do not need to be configured for takeoff anymore. There you go. Fantastic. I still think we may want to put some sort of a little container back here to put these in. It would make things a little simpler. And I grabbed the wrong strut there, but that's okay. So we've got a strut there, we've got a strut here, and of course a strut here. And then there's this guy here, but that's not relevant to us right now. So that's all fine. We've got a few extra struts down here that are from the connection to the big orange tank. So that's completely fine, no problem there. This will need to be an internal strut. That's fine. We got this turned, of course, from a 20-degree engine turn, or rather a 20-degree engine offset, I guess we could say, over to a 0-degree engine offset, which will make flying far easier, no doubt about that. And let's get this last location done. I'll do this internally. Okay, that'll be fine. Bill, you can let go, and we're going to bring you right back in because we are now reconfigured for orbital flight. Fantastic. We'll grab on and let go. Looks like there is maybe a little bit of clippage happening here. Yeah, a teeny tiny bit, but these are actually the batteries. So that's a normal thing that's going to clip there. Cool. That's fine. So at this point, we need to take a quick look at what it would be like if we attempted to intercept the station, right? I think our timing is awkward on that front, but we do kind of expect that. Yeah, that's pretty far apart. Let's add an orbit here. And another orbit. That's much closer. Ooh, that's a pretty good encounter, actually. Yeah, I like that. That's quite good. So we're still like 11.5 kilometers apart. What's the ascending descending node here? 0.1 degrees? Okay, that's not bad at all. So we could just dial this in with prograde retrograde then. And just timing. So sometime around there? This is close enough. That'll do. It is, of course, time to put a cut in here, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. And next episode, we are going to... Hang on a moment. I need to thrust limit this before I forget. Next episode, we're going to head up to the ISS and get these parts installed. And that'll be absolutely wonderful to have the Kerbal 2/3 done at that point. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and a very special thank you to all of the channel members for making this video possible, including ALS Gamer, Shadow Wolf, Andy McGar, Upper Cumberland Gamers, Nick Smarty, Dimitri H, Punching the Microphone, Soccerman12 UK, Kentogan, and all the rest. And of course, you. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click the join button down below the video, and as always, I will see you all next time.